This is A Few Good Fights, proudly brought to you by the MMA Movement. This week, Khabib's coach said that Conor McGregor is still the number one challenger to the champion. Petesy Carroll joins us to discuss that and all the big MMA news. And we have the fallout from UFC Rochester. We're educating young Sean, and we're in Sean's Weird and Wonderful News. This is the big MMA news, and I'm delighted to say we are now joined by MMA Fighting's and Eurobash's own Petesy Carroll. He's on his own. He doesn't have that pesky Niall McGrath with him today. So, Petesy, welcome along, my man, for the first time to A Few Good Fights.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us, lads. Studio looks great as always. I always say it looks brilliant, that show, so fair play. I'll probably knock down the look of it a bit with this face, but sure, what can you do?
Rob balances it all out. He equalises it all with that Cody Garbrandt heading them. Big fights went down the weekend. We had UFC Fight Night Rochester. We had Rafael dos Anjos taking on Kevin Lee. When we were picking this fight, I was surprised because I was sort of saying Lee is going to look great at this weight class, and I was out really expecting him to come in and look like the much bigger fighter. But straight off, it didn't really look that way. But what was your takes about number one on the performance? Because RDA leading into it, Petey had said it takes you a few fights to adjust to the new weight class. Was that evidence on Saturday night?
Yeah, I think so. And I know it was the same as you when they faced off at the start. I definitely consider dos Anjos one of the smaller welterweights in the division, especially smaller, prominent welterweights certainly. And I know straight from the get-go, like you said, this isn't too much of an advantage Kevin has here. And to be honest, I felt he faded as the fight went on, which I expected. That as I said, like at 170, we expected him to be able to have much more output, be able to fight a lot harder in those later rounds. And I find it very, very similar, like, how he fought at 155. He just seemed to fade, and the fight got away from him. And it was quite one-sided in the sense that, maybe after during the second round, I'd say I began to think that Kevin Lee has no chance in this fight.
Was there anything you seen that almost justified his move up? Because you did say it felt like it kind of just looked like a lightweight fight for him. But did you see much from Kevin Lee where you're like, yeah, this move makes sense?
I think when at the weigh-in, just to see his mood and see his health, you gotta say it's a better move. And the thing is, as Noel said there, so many people were picking Kevin, and they forget that dos Anjos is right there at the top of that division, knocking on the door. I mean, if you beat dos Anjos, you're pretty much saying, I'm ready to fight for the title. He's only lost to the interim champion and the champion, right? He's right there. So I think that was a tough fight as well. That's a very tough fight to just walk in there. And I know a lot of people wanted Kevin Lee to establish himself in that title conversation and shake things up. But let's be honest, the welterweight division has a lot of new faces there. Yeah. They have Pettis. They have Nate Diaz now as well, who's fighting Pettis, obviously. There's a lot of new faces there. It's not the end of the world. I know fighters... it's very hard to tell a fighter it's not the end of the world after they lose, and they've obviously been setting themselves up for one of the biggest wins of their career, and you can see how devastated Lee is from his Instagram post there. But I expect him to learn a lot from that, and have another stab at getting to the top of the bracket. Maybe don't try and fight the guy a guy at the very top of the division next time. I don't think that's a hard ask in your first kind of shot division.
Do you think that the fact that McGregor went up, won the title, it's almost, people almost assume now that, oh yeah, you can easily just jump up and fight these bigger guys, because we've seen now Max Holloway going up, he lost, now Kevin Lee loses, and they look like they do need to adapt. So do you think that the UFC need to go down the route of, you had a lot of success at this weight, but you are starting from scratch of sorts at this new weight class. We need to kind of build you up a little bit more.
Yeah, if you're the champion, fight the champion. That made sense in McGregor's situation where he's a complete anomaly, at that stage, I don't think he's ever been kind of topped in terms of his celebrity and the respect. The attention he commanded from the mainstream media, that all made sense in that situation. So yeah, I do think they need to calm it down. And when you look at I was speaking to Calderwood recently, she's gone from strawweight to flyweight, and she's had 2 fights there, and she said, I'm still growing into this. It's 10 pounds, it's 10 pounds there, and she's saying I still feel like I need to build more muscle. My body needs to adapt. So if she's saying that after 2 fights, and the margin's even smaller between strawweight and flyweight, there's certainly an even bigger gap then to emerge if you're going from 55 to 70. You know, like in terms of the size of these guys. And as Kevin Lee was absolutely huge as a lightweight, we can see now that he just basically went to welterweight, you know? Like the same guy just went to welterweight. Like, does he need to put on more size? I don't know. He's huge already, of course, but it is something that, you know, I do believe it's a long enough process. I think that people might think it's a bit easier than it is. Like, oh, I'm just fighting up here now, you know?
Does that in some way give a call to the adoption or the induction of 165? Is that 15 pounds? Because I know a lot of people talk about it. Like, I know Brave Combat Federation, they had the super lightweight title at 165, and then regionally at the weekend down in Cage Legacy there was a 165 fight as well, and it seems to be the Goldilocks, the just right weight class for a lot of fighters, that maybe that extra 5 pounds, because as you said, Pete, you might be going up from 55 to 170, but the guys who are cutting down to 170 have that advantage as well, that they're still coming down. So does it open the question more so about 165 being the right option for a lot of for these guys, and should the UFC revisit? I know Dana White is absolutely opposed to it, but this is a long-winded question about 165. I'm fully aware of this, but it's just
like catchphrase.
It's like catchphrase, but it's just when you look at Kevin Lee, he seems to be the example that 65 might be the right division for a lot of guys and body types.
Yeah, like look at Norman Park there in KSW the other day. You know, like he's another example. Like I'm all for as many weight divisions as we need. You know, just let them more belts. You know, like these guys are making up belts for absolutely no reason most weeks. Like why wouldn't they want more belts, more divisions? Like I mean, it's counterintuitive to their own system. It's ridiculous, really. But it's I think there should be a 65 division. There should be as many divisions as possible, because it's only a matter of time before something terrible happens. You know, like, and we all know it. Like, you know, we all know it. It's the worst thing about the whole sport. You know, people. We always get kind of up in arms when we see mainstream media giving out about, like, you know, the barbarism in MMA, man. If they really want to do a big expose, they should have a look at weight cutting, because it's sick, man. Like some of the shit people is doing is so messed up. So, like, I think they need to do as many divisions as they possibly can. And I think that's the most beneficial thing for the fighters, like, and that's the best way, so people aren't depleting themselves. Like, the people are always going to try and do everything to the absolute nth degree. They're going to try and take it way too far, so they'll have the tiniest advantage on the night, or perceived tiny advantage on the night. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. So, yeah, I do believe that 165 is the way to go. I actually was really intrigued to see if they do that thing where they were going to weigh in at 165.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been pretty cool, right? Like, I was pretty pissed off they didn't do that in the end, actually.
Yeah, Lee was saying it right up. I suppose you were probably sitting there eating a dinner going, fuck that idea, 65, fuck that. Yeah. Put more coleslaw on that, you know what I mean? Like,
Actually, you know what? Fuck it.
RDA racks up at 165 going, what the fuck, Kevin? Nah, man.
Nah.
I love my meat and spuds. But yeah, weirdly we're saying RDA, he's right on the peripheral there. So the interim and the current champion, I suppose, are the losses to. And is that sort of as well a tip to the hat of us as MMA, both like fans and media, that, you know, we tend to forget about fighters. We only think fighters as good as their last fight. So coming off a 2-fight loss, you sort of think, RDA might be done, and then boom, he puts in a performance and takes care of Kevin Lee.
Yeah, well, there's just so many fights, isn't there? Like, it's like you don't really get time to process anything. Every weekend, it's a new one. You don't really get to kind of settle, have a think about what happened. It just comes down to loss and wins at the end of the day, because you're so overwhelmed by fights. There's so many of them. Like, you can't blame people for kind of going, maybe this guy isn't, like, because at the end of the day, they're not really looking at who the guy lost. They're just like, he lost. He's over 30. He's on his way out. That's pretty much the way it usually goes, you know what I mean?
Just have a kid do a cowboy.
Yeah,
that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's my favorite version of cowboy ever. Yeah, since he had a kid, it's great.
Yeah.
But I feel like that does happen quite a bit, but it's just the nature of the beast. There's just too many fights, man. It's just too many.
Very true. A big fight that stood out for me actually the weekend, and more so was the call out after it, because the UFC, I felt, brought in Megan Anderson to be the one to beat Cyborg, if you like. That seemed to be their idea, to build up that division as well. But Felicia Spencer, who was the champion as well, Invicta, so we had champion versus champion, former champion, and Spencer gets it done. And in some ways, it really put Megan Anderson in a bad spot in the UFC. She's 1-2 now, and even her win came under controversy, although not her fault. Kicked Katsugano in the eyeball. But it's a Felicia Spencer calls out Cyborg as well. After this, Cyborg has accepted. So could that be the matchup? And what's the future hold for Megan Anderson, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, Megan seems to be so, like, physically she looks amazing. Like, you feel like, she could put it together. She would be a serious force to be reckoned with, but it's just not happening. I don't know if it's a mental thing with her, but it's like, as soon as I see someone on her back, I'm like, this isn't going, like, she's not getting out of here, and it's not a good thing. And as you said, the Katzengano win is the only one there, and that's highly controversial. You can only, like, if they did that again, who would you pick? Let's be honest. Like, it's I don't really feel that she's there at this championship level. I don't see the fight with Chris Cyborg. I don't see any interest in her whatsoever at the moment. So I think she has to really have a think about what she's doing. And, you're going to have to try and rebuild, but you're going to have to do way better. You're going to have to do so much better. Like, I mean, on paper, when you're looking at that, like, I mean, ever since, even before she joined the UFC, we're talking about her. She's the natural 45er that's going to take on Chris Cyborg. I don't think she's anywhere near that. No. I don't think she's anywhere near it. And, and we have seen her put it together. Back in the Invicta days, she looked like a killer, So it's like, what is going on here? Like, there is something wrong. There's a missing ingredient in that recipe. Like, I don't know what it is, but... and we do see it sometimes as well when people join the UFC, they just don't get it. Like, look at Scott Askham. He did not have a good run in the UFC. Yeah. And he looks like a completely different fighter now. Sorry, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but so many people, like Americans, were onto me over the weekend going, oh, like, this guy was 2-4 in the UFC, and now he's the champion of KSW. What does that say about KSW? Look at the difference in the guy. Yeah. It's a different fighter. Like, it's a completely different fighter. And... Maybe that's what Megan needs to do. Maybe she needs to go back to Invicta and find the fire and then bring it back. But I just don't know. I can't imagine UFC will do that because, of course, they need 145ers. But it's just not working. And she needs to seriously change things. And I don't know what she's going to do, but it really isn't working. And I don't see her as a threat at all to the champion.
Yeah, like, I think, like, the UFC isn't the end all be all, but, like, it seems like there's this, like, unusual amount of pressure when people get there. And, like, if we know that Megan Anderson was the one that was being groomed to fight Cyborg and the one that was gonna, like, save this division or whatever, like, she knew that, and there was probably so much pressure going in that she was like, she probably wasn't working on her skills the way she had to. She was just thinking of that fight, and maybe that's what happened. But, like, she has a ways to go. Like, she's just the one that looks like the one that can compete in that division. She looks like someone, like, properly sized for it. Whereas even Felicia Spencer doesn't really look like a true fighter for that division. Just to the point as well, though, Peter, with her round going away, do you think that's the promotion itself? Is that yourself in any role in life, like if you work in a supermarket or whatever, you're just a number, while if you're working like a local corner shop, you probably not work side by side with the owner. Do you think it could be something like that as well, that the UFC roster is just so big and so vast that you're literally a number there, and there's just constant pressure on you to do certain things for the promotion within the promotion, while when you go to the likes of a KSW, Cage Warriors, Bellator, you're made feel a little bit more special and loved? Do you think it could be something along the lines of that?
Yeah, it might be. I really don't know. I really couldn't tell you. I just, it's just been weird, hasn't it? Like, with Megan, like I really felt like she was gonna have a big impact, And I don't know. It's just, I don't believe it anymore. I don't feel that before she fights. I'm not like excited about it. I was excited about it, when she first signed, and it's not there anymore. I honestly can't put my finger on what it is. And Felicia did call out Cyborg, and just looking on Cyborg's Instagram, I think I was looking at, she said, yeah, look, I accept, it's either Twitter or thing, doesn't matter. But she basically said, yeah, I haven't fought in a while, challenge accepted, see you in July, I think she said. Is it too early for Spencer to be getting a crack at Cyborg, or is it the right fight? There's only, two people in the division. Like, either fighting Megan Anderson or you're fighting... Get Random Ian back up there. That's it, like. It's not even a division. Yeah. Let's be honest, it's the most ridiculous division in the UFC. It's... they brought it in, like, obviously for Cyborg. It's great that Nunes is the champ. Like, I think she's brilliant. Yeah. But, yeah, like who else are you gonna call out? You know, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's mad.
John Anik, what's John Anik weighing?
Yeah, it's so illogical though, isn't it? Like they won't do 65, so against it, but they'll do interim titles and a division with like 3 fighters in it. Like it's just illogical. It's insane.
Man. And then get rid of flyweight. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder though, does the Cyborg have that much pulling power, fan power, pressure for the UFC to do that? Do you know what I mean?
They just wanted her to fight.
Numbers wise, I wonder what our numbers are doing. Any other fights on the night stand out to anyone here? I think Charles Oliveira was another one, but as you said, Rob, he absolutely pasted Nick Lentz before we went on here.
Yeah, it was a weird fight as well because he done another. I think it was like another illegal knee or kick or something like that. That fight's course, but yeah, just beat the brakes off him. I thought Ian Heinisch looked good as well. Those are the ones. Really.
What's his name?
Michel Pereira.
Oh yeah,
Michel
Pereira, yes.
Man doing front flips in the cage.
Yeah.
It was mad, right? Because I interviewed Danny Roberts before that, and I'd never heard Danny so confident in my life.
Well.
And honestly, like I was like, yeah, that makes sense. This guy hasn't fought anyone near your caliber. Like I honestly was like, this is gonna be a one-sided win. Like you know, I thought he was gonna absolutely melt him. To be honest, look at the records of the guys this guy was beating before he came to the UFC. Like I mean, they were like pretty even records most of the time. You know what I mean? He had no kind of like, wow, well look, that's impressive. Not recently, anyway. I was shocked, man. I was picking my jaw up off the floor after that. Even my friend, I showed my friend that fight last night. I was like, you'll have never seen someone fight like this guy before.
Yeah.
That's like it's very exciting. Like look at the impact that guy had. Like
it was trending massively.
People are talking about let's match him up with Robbie Lawler.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like he was Guilherme, my colleague Guilherme, my friend Guilherme Cruz, the best in Brazil, of course, the Brazilian beast. He was telling me beforehand that like this guy was basically laughed out of MMA gyms. They used to tell him like, you're a clown, like don't come in here, like, but the way you fight is ridiculous. Now he's gone in and done that. Like I mean, like that is a scary knockout. And what's this? Like I mean, Danny Roberts is the only guy from Europe that was fighting on that UFC card, and now he's had 3 bad losses. You know, like if you think about the loss to Perry in Manchester, that was hard to watch. And was it Nordine Talib that shadow round him as well? Yeah. I mean, what's kick. Like that, and that Pereira knockout was vicious, man. That was fucked. You know, like the way his body falls there, like
that right hand was like a piston.
Yeah.
Is Pereira sort of like, I'm not saying MVP is like that, but like I know, is he a bit of an MVP where like if you
Johnny Walker,
because Johnny Walker MVP, it's like a style you're not gonna really see. It's like he's I don't know. He's like the guy outside a car garage.
Yeah,
does that.
Guy,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like they were actually talking about this. The commentator said something before. Was it Krantz who fought? Who stepped in on short notice?
Yeah.
They were kind of saying about him fighting Luke. They were like, he just needs to go at him and not give him time to think about what he was doing. And he actually did that really well against Luke early on. And I think that's what it is. I think it's just everything's happening so fast. Roberts can't kind of compute what's going on. You know, he's like, what the hell is this? I did not expect this. You know, I think from based on my conversation with him beforehand, I got the feeling that he thought Pereira was going to be nervous. And look, it looked like that. He was crying. He has full-blown crying before that fight. Like, I was like, oh, man, the stage is getting to him. The UFC jitters are here, and here comes Danny Roberts. He's pissed off that he lost to Claudio Silva in London. He's going to kill this guy. And then that happens.
Yeah.
Like, it's just mental.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see what happens with him because who knows?
That's I see the tweet. Somebody tweeted saying, "Hey, at UFC EA Sports, best of luck putting Johnny Walker and Pereira in the game."
Yeah.
Imagine the controls. It was just like playing Street Fighter again.
Button mashing.
Absolutely. Something that you were quite passionate about on the A side, PT KSW 49 went down at the weekend. I swear to God, if Martin doesn't get you as a hype machine, you were like, what's his name out, burping backstage, you know what I mean, going, we're rolling! You're like that, but the KSW version of it. Man, you were passionate.
I thought Sean was going to do something like that as well. He was like, this is called the promo, right? Beforehand, he was like, you have to do a promo. I expected everybody was going to do that. I thought I was doing absolutely normal. This is standard energy here in this situation.
Yeah.
Then I was like, oh, fuck. He's like, it goes to Sean, he's like, yeah, gotta watch that Vicente Luque fight. And I'm like, what? I'm like sweating, like telling myself off back here.
Yeah.
But now everybody probably thinks I work for KSW.
And full Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
just short the ribbon off the t-shirt.
Oh, it was quality,
Yeah.
well played. But you talked about Scott Askren. We talked about him beforehand about outside the UFC. Come in an incredible performance and finish to get in there. But it just looks like a different guy under there. And now, of course, he's the champion at KSW. But KSW, we'll talk about that in some ways. But this is my point, and it's what your passion brought it to me when I was watching it. And with one FC as well, that one championship that went down as well, poor Sage. When you look at it though, like there's a lot of and I suppose we would have been guilty of it in the earlier days of the UFC, but there's a lot of fans that just think UFC is MMA. Like, is this the best time for other promotions outside of the UFC? As in, is this the best time to be a good promotion outside of it? Because beforehand, it was always just seeing the UFC and they'd swallow up whoever. But now it seems to be there's a lot of MMA promotions out there that are standing on their own foot and competing in some ways with the UFC.
Yeah, like I honestly, like, hand on heart, like most weekends, like I don't think the UFC cards are that compelling. Like, you know what I mean? I really don't. You know, obviously we have to cover these things. Like, I mean, it's the big league, and you know you gotta respect that, and you've got to cover that. But most of the time, I'm more excited about what's happening in Cage Warriors, what's happening in KSW. Like even the Bellator regional, the European series. Like it's more about the guys that we're covering, really. Yeah. Anyway, you know, it's on at our time. Like I just don't really understand how. If you've been a UFC fan for like 10 years and you haven't even dipped your toe in these other promotions, like what are you doing? Like you're wasting your time. And to be honest, it's more interesting. Like the guys are more interesting when you go and speak to these things, find out how different it is. Like, I mean, for them, like people find it hard to believe that like fighters don't want to leave KSW to go to the UFC.
Yeah,
they don't. Like Roberto Soldic is the best prospect in Europe. He is unbelievable. He's absolutely unbelievable. He's brilliant to watch. He's never in a boring fight. And he's like, what? Like, why would I go? Like, I love these guys. These are great. These are paying me good money. The Polish people, you know, they get behind me. I want to fight in a stadium. You know, like that's the kind of stuff I want to do. That's the kind of stuff that's available to me fighting for KSW that would not be available to me if I fought in the UFC. You know, like it really is like, and it's like back to what you said earlier, Noel, about like, basically you're just another number when you're in the UFC. You know what I mean? Like, Soldic is one of the main guys there. So if he goes to the UFC, where is he in the welterweight pile?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really feel like, yes, I don't know how people aren't getting into this. And like one thing I'll say, like I know a lot of people are poking fun at me and all over the KSW thing. Like it showed me like I need to actually be a bit more passionate about this, because there was so many people from the US tuning into that event, like going, oh, I'm tuning in from LA, just, you know, because it was a bit of crack that I was like losing my shit about it, obviously. But like, you know, when cards justify that, I think I should actually be like that now.
But it's everything. You know? I find everything that KSW do, when we covered it here in Dublin, it was like going to Pride.
It was,
To me, that's what it felt like. I mean, poor Chris Field standing, trying to keep his head down, and still go like that, you know.
Into the cage.
But, you know, it was phenomenal. Like the way the mic drops down on you, man. This is KS. You're there going, this is
from the Vikings up the hills, all this kind of crap. The blood from the mountains.
It was absolutely phenomenal. But then the fights justified it.
They need to, like, MMA fans need to understand there's different ways to package this. There's different things going on here. Like, that's what I actually interviewed. I actually interviewed Kowalski beforehand, the guy who produces all the KSW shows. And it was just very interesting, him kind of telling me this is what we do. Because a lot of it would just go past, like, you wouldn't even realize, you know what I mean? And when he starts breaking it down, and then I was watching the show, I was like, oh, that's what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about. Yeah. And it's all made, like, their whole model is built so your ma can watch the fights. You know what I mean? So your man's like, this is crazy. Look at this show. And it really is like that. You know, if you look into the crowd at KSW, it's such an eclectic mix. Like, you know what I mean? There's families there and everything. It's unbelievable. These guys are like as mainstream as soccer players are in England. That's how big it is over there, you know.
I gotta say, we had Martin Ledwinski on here when the old version of the show. What a cool man!
What a cool man. Yeah.
I expect him to have a little gun in his pocket.
Oh yeah.
He was just sitting there with a
Drinking
little
whiskey,
whiskey,
yeah.
and just swirling it as he was talking to us. I was expecting a cat to jump in his lap and just look deadpan at us and be stroking the cat while talking. It was fucking brilliant.
Someone actually said to me once, they go to me, I just had a meeting with Martin Lewandowski over whiskey, and I was like, well, that's the only way I want him to have meetings ever. Like, I don't stroking a cat with a whiskey in his hand. He's a Bond villain. He looks like a Bond villain.
He probably does, yeah. He sort of has a resemblance of Jimmy Fallon. Is it Jimmy Fallon? No, Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel. Looks a little like Jimmy Kimmel as well. Yeah. Check it out when you go on.
Like the devil.
Okay. It was a nice touch actually by Norman Park and his opponent as well, as they squared off to scare the shit out of him. Zwinski, the two of them gave him another push and the lads were diving in. Brilliant stuff. But another question I have for outside the world of UFC, PT. One championship. Are they signing former UFC fighters to make their promotion look better and getting the fighters spanked?
I don't know if that's the case. Like, I mean, you'd think, right, that, you know, it would have been a way better thing for them if Eddie Alvarez and Sage won, right?
Yeah.
Like, because, you know, with the viewers and stuff. But there's some questions I have about it. Like, I mean, look at the size of the guys that the UFC are all going in against. Like, there isn't. I'm very confused about this whole weigh-in situation with one championship. Like, how is it safer? And that guy looked like he was like 250 pounds that fought Sage. You know what I mean? I don't understand it.
Sorry.
Anytime you ask any of these guys like about the weigh-in situation, they never seem to give you any information about it. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. One is one, man. It's crazy, but I mean, taking nothing away from Cosmo. Like, I mean,
Japanese,
certainly like all my colleagues at MMA fighting, as soon as this fight was matched, like, that's Jesus Christ, like, that is a horrific matchup. You know what I mean? Like,
but that's what I mean. If to your point, where it'd be good for them when you've seen the matchups that like Alvarez got on his debut, Sage got on his debut, you're sort of going, they're not really trying to build their story or build their character here. They're just putting them in tough fights, which for fans is whatever, grand. But it's just interesting.
You know what I thought was a bit weird though? Like, I felt like there was a bigger reaction. It might just be the knockout because it was a devastating knockout, but it seemed like there was a bigger reaction to Sage Northcutt losing than there was Eddie Alvarez. It was almost like, look, the UFC aren't as good because Sage Northcutt, like, no, because Eddie Alvarez was the bigger loss. Like, I thought that was really weird. Like, Sage
I think
Northcutt
it's
was
more
losing.
just because he looked like Ivan Drago.
Probably, yeah.
A lot more in this fight.
Fascination, isn't it? Like, I mean, Eddie Alvarez is a diehard. He's a fighter's fighter, you know. Like, he's a diehard fans fighter. Sage Northcutt kind of. My missus knows who Sage Northcutt is. You know what I mean? Like, it's just he's very unique and compelling, for his own fantastic ways, I guess. But like, I've met Sage. He's absolutely like that all the time.
He
like,
called you Mr. Carroll, didn't he? Hey, Mr. Carroll.
He didn't know who it was. Let's be honest. You know. I talked to him a good bit, but like, that's the way he is. You know, he's really polite, really nice. He looks the healthiest man in the world. He looked like, to me, like the human version of a Clydesdale horse. I was like, that is an unbelievable man. But it's tough, man, and especially a young guy like that getting his face absolutely smashed up.
I heard, I won't embarrass him, but I heard a friend of mine had said that Jesus, Sage can't take a punch. You're like, have you seen the X-ray?
Yeah,
you know,
what was it, 8 fractures or something like that?
God,
it was the happiest looking man I've ever seen with 8 fractures in his face.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sitting on the bed.
I was kind of thinking about it when I was eating my breakfast this morning. I was actually thinking about like Sage. Like, is he actually like a psychopath behind those well?
Like American Psycho.
Fuck you! And like taking a picture of him. He's like, "Hey guys, just want to say it's super cool. The fight was awesome." You know. And then he just goes mental. Just puts up a happy post for 5 seconds. And he has like 7 handlers trying to pin him to the bed. You have to stay here. Sage. No.
No, that's the way I'm going to think about it forever. That's
he's a psychopath.
Moving on, we've Khabib's coach Javier Mendez is quoted as saying he still believes that Conor McGregor presents the biggest challenge to the Eagle. So he called out, he basically listed fighters. He said Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway. He said Holloway doesn't carry the power, and he just, without going through every quote he said, is that just maybe Mendez knows what's potentially down the line and where the money fight is?
Well, yeah, but he was on our show, like, and like the very first episode of Eurobash actually, and Javier told Niall, he was like, look, I know he's not the biggest challenge, but he's definitely the most money. So it's very different. It's incredibly different. But I mean, let's look at what's happened since then. I guess Max did not have the best introduction to 155 like everybody imagined. Like he didn't. I thought he was going to beat Dustin Poirier ahead of that fight, and I did factor into that how brilliant Poirier has been and everything. But I just thought that Max Holloway is that extra elite, and the fact that he didn't do it, maybe that has changed where Conor situates there. I don't know how they could say that about Tony Ferguson. Like, I mean, it's a joke. The Tony situation is abysmal. You know what I mean? Like, I think no, as far as I know, did he say that it was Conor and then Tony?
Conor, Tony, Poirier, Holloway.
So I'd say the money had a big, but like, to be honest, Conor didn't look himself at all against Khabib. Like, that isn't the Conor we remember. Like, it isn't. Like, that was a very bad performance.
There was talk about injury though, wasn't it? It was released a couple of weeks ago. Yeah,
I was trying to confirm that report before the fight, and it was all, no, he's fine. But like that was well known. Like, I mean, that happened in the gym in SPG. I think because the amount of information that was floating around, was unbelievable about that. Like, I didn't hear from anyone in the game really. I heard from just randomers that were friends with people from the gym or whatever. You know what I mean? So it was pretty well known. I was told it wasn't a break at the time, but of course they're going to say that, like, because they don't want me reporting that he has a broken foot. So it doesn't surprise me. I in his earlier career, before those world titles, I spent a lot of time with Conor, and he was often injured. Look at the way he was before the Mendez fight. Like, that's like whatever you want about Conor, but what I saw him fight through in the lead up to that Mendez fight was unbelievable. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget seeing a person mentally will themselves. Like, I'm not messing. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, it was actually unbelievable. Him convincing himself that he would not be affected by that, even though his knee was basically like it wasn't solid at all. It was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. And back then, like, I really feel like he was probably the best fighter in the world for about a year and a half around that stage. You know what I mean? And a lot of people forget that now, and obviously there's been a lot of negative press and stuff. But back then, he really was. And look at, like, back then, look at the way he was making the country feel. Look at the way he was making young people feel. Now that's gone now, but at that time that was happening. Do
you think he fights? I think John Kavanagh's quote was saying he thinks it'll be the end of the year, wasn't he? He said he thinks Conor will be back before the end of the year. Do you think it happens?
Yeah, that's what I'd imagine. Like, Queally was saying that as well. Obviously, Queally spars with Conor. Like, he'd be like the chief sparring partner, it seems, at the moment, based on what I'm seeing on social media. So I think it's just too big of a payday, isn't it, not to fight again? Like, are we gonna see the guy that bet Alvarez? I really doubt it. I think it's very hard. I think it'd be exceptionally difficult for Conor to ever really return to that level of that elite, Like, I mean, imagine, like, the hunger that you have to compete at that high level. Like, I mean, Jesus Christ, like, this guy is balancing 1,000 plates. Like, I just don't think he can ever get back there. Like, I don't, and that's sad and all, but I just that's really how I feel about it. I don't think he ever can.
Over or under? Do we see Conor McGregor in the UFC octagon 2 times? Over or under?
In 2019?
No, just rest of his career. Do we see Conor McGregor fight less than twice or twice or more?
Twice or more.
Think so?
Yeah, I don't know when. Like, I mean, I have a feeling like Conor be 45 fighting in the octagon. Like, I'm coming back. Champion. I'm gonna go after him. You know what I mean? And everybody would buy it because look, like, he's the biggest star the sport's ever created. Like, and that I think it's gonna be a long time before they ever get someone like him again.
I don't think there's another him again. And the whole package. Like, he was the absolute, like, dream deal for the UFC. Like, it's funny to think back to, like, Dana White thought he was a fucking heavyweight. Like, do you know what I mean? And like, he was the ultimate dream package. He was everything for the UFC. Promotion, look, fights, backs it up, calling fights. He used to call his fights. What I'm gonna do, Jay? I'm gonna finish it. Yeah.
How would you rearrange that list of Khabib's hardest opponents?
I'd go Tony, Poirier, Conor, Holloway.
Yeah.
I'd probably put Holloway ahead of Conor, to be honest.
Yeah. I just didn't think Holloway carried the pop And
Yeah, no, you're right.
he was getting hurt every time he was hit.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, they all have a lot of trouble against Khabib.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. Yeah.
I think it's as well as that. Like you've got to factor in Conor's performance against Khabib. It was really bad, you know.
Yeah, we've seen it. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
one-sided, you know.
Yeah, and how many times do we see somebody come back in a rematch and put on a much better performance than that when it's extended? Like,
It would have to be like a first-round knockout, really, wouldn't
Yeah,
it? Like,
but I think like if his next fight is Khabib, I think it's gonna repeat himself. I think Conor needs to get in there. Like I was all
Definitely.
excited when he was matched with. It looked like he was gonna be matched with Cowboy. I was
Yeah,
like, yeah,
it's
this is
fun.
a good fight. It'd be a fun fight. Whatever. It could get him back there as well. So I do think he needs a fight before he fights.
will they revisit RDA? People are talking about that now.
Yeah, well, Conor answered it, didn't he, in a tweet? Too late, we'll never find out, or something, because of his bitch foot or something like that. He said, didn't he?
Yeah.
like that's it. We just want to see him fight, you know.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, I'm sick of reading it. As I said a couple of weeks ago here, I want to read about Conor McGregor on the back pages, not the front pages, you know.
Yeah, and like I feel like it's so important though, you know, for him to lose again now would be disastrous.
Yeah.
You know, I
agree.
think he does need to be clever about it, and you know, I also think that the Cerrone fight, like I think a loss to Cerrone is far more crippling than another loss to Khabib would be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree. I do
Yeah,
agree.
big time.
But it'd be a barometer, wouldn't it? See where he's at. You know, because if you put Conor McGregor and Cowboy Cerrone in, let's say after he beat Alvarez, I think you'd struggle to find anybody who would have been picking Cowboy. While now, that's completely changed.
Yeah. Like we honestly like look at the drop off Conor had between the Alvarez and the Khabib fight. Like I mean, like it's we're not breaking any news by saying it looked like a completely different fighter. Like so, I mean, like that took 3 years for that decline in ability. All right, or was it 2 years? Two years.
2
right?
years.
Two and a bit.
2 years for that decline in ability. How is he? Do you really think he can bridge that gap in a year and get back to where he was? Like, you know, I don't.
I know he
I
won't
think
tell
it's
you.
far easier to I think it's far easier to kind of decline than it is to get back. If you know what I mean. And especially a guy like Conor, like he's 31 this year. I think he's 31 in July.
Yeah.
So I mean, when it's a guy like Conor who relies so much on that explosivity, power, fast twitch, muscle, speed, like I mean, is it getting tougher and tougher for him to fight like that? You know.
Yeah, and it's not like he needs the paycheck either. Like he's loaded.
Oh, yeah.
like, you know
But
what I mean?
as
So-
Connor's even said, he doesn't do it for the money. He does it for he does it because he loves the fight.
Yeah.
But talking about when I said don't read about him on the back, but I want to read about back page, not front page. One thing you'll see an awful lot of shite in the papers with McGregor whenever his name is mentioned, but you didn't see a huge amount of coverage. What he's doing, building them houses for low income families. You know what I mean? People are quick enough to spread stuff on WhatsApp groups and everything when it's bad news, but when it's
the whole WhatsApp group.
be guilty of it. But when it's good news, you don't see it passed around as much. But that was a great thing he's doing in Dublin City, building the houses there as well, being part of it or funding. I'm not exactly sure, but he was funding low income houses.
I've seen some. I think there's some homeless charities looking for a clarification on that, and I've heard some counsellors as well. So I really don't know what the situation is there. You know.
Talking fights again. Max Holloway, Frankie Edgar. What you think? This one sort of. It's almost being done because it's been attempted to be done a few times. Sort of like, go on, we'll do it then. That's what I get of it, like, cause so a lot of people aren't mad at it, which is weird because some people are like, he doesn't deserve that.
People just like
when you're talking about whatever, but then it's like, go on, sure, they were meant to do it. But probably a good fight. No disrespect to Frankie, who's an absolute legend in the game, but good fight for Max Holloway to come back to featherweight too.
And it's a good time for Frankie to be getting them as well, isn't it? Like, I think that's gonna really, really suck for him getting down to 145 this time. You know, like it's not so common that you see guys making it really easy after going up to another division and come back down. And another thing is like the fight with Poirier was absolutely gruesome. Like you know what I mean? That was a hellish fight. Yeah, and that will happen. 3 months in the difference between these two fights? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, That's a bit mad to me. Like I don't understand why Frankie got the shot at all. You know, I don't. Yeah. And I thought Volkanovski should have got it. And I don't understand why Max just didn't take some time off. Yeah. And Volkanovski took some time off, and then they fought in October in Australia or whatever it is. Like I think that makes far more sense than popping this fight in the mix. You know, like just like slotting that in the middle for no reason, really.
Yeah. It's a really like tough one, isn't it, for Holloway? Like even now,
it seems to be the way for me with the UFC of late. It's like, we'll get
Wait,
that.
fill-
sure,
yeah,
we'll get it
fill a
back in.
card, yeah,
Get
just
get,
fill a
get
card.
a belt in there. Get a
Yeah,
real
but
belt
like
in
it's
there.
really weird.
They've walked themselves into a corner with the amount of cards they're putting on, and they
Yeah.
need to fill them. And like the quality has to go down eventually, and fighters are going to pay feel
Yeah.
the brunt of that, having to fill cards.
Yeah, it's a weird one for Holloway to accept, because even Frankie Edgar, he's had some time off, and I don't think that's a bad thing for someone like Edgar who's been fighting for so long. He had a year off. He's gonna be fresh. It's a tough one.
We fly through the last ones. Tyron Woodley's being forced out, and he gets a lot of stick, Woodley, but he doesn't pull from that many fights. But everyone, their brother and their auntie, have put their names forward to fight Robbie Lawler. A while ago, he wouldn't have got too many people jumping at the boat to fight Robbie Lawler, but they're all calling for it at sort of catchweight. Darren Till, Ponzinibbio is just a couple that have called out. But realistically, Petesy, if you were in the UFC matchmaker seat, who are you sticking Robbie Lawler in with?
So I think the issue they're going to have is really convincing Robbie Lawler to take a fight now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this guy's a legend. Like, he's not going to just fight anyone, you know? Like, he's not. And, like, if it was a situation where, who would I put him against? Like, honestly, I'd put him against Leon Edwards. Like, what the hell's going on there? The guy's on a 7-fight win streak. He was number 9 before UFC London. Now he's number 11. Those stupid rankings.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they have an issue there where they're actually disrespecting that guy.
Yeah.
You know, they really are. Like, I mean, it's a joke as far as I'm concerned. Like, it's just, it makes no sense. He has the second longest winning streak in the division after the champion, I think. You know, like, I think you need to sort that out. It doesn't make any sense. Like, and Till doesn't really make sense after coming off that devastating knockout. You're going to stick him in 4 months later against another absolute killer. Like, I don't like that fight for Till one bit, man. Not at all. Like,
Yeah, I think Till needs to sort of not get a feeder fight, but you know what I mean. Maybe not take on somebody that's styled. You know what I mean?
Yeah, big puncher. I've been saying it as well, coming on, and you kind of mentioned this. Like, the UFC cards haven't been great, but now, like, they've been kind of lucky with injuries. But now this one, if you actually look at the rest of this card, this is an ESPN card, their third ESPN card, and the rest of the card ain't great. So if you're not getting somebody to fight Robbie Lawler that's in a good position, this card isn't looking very good for an ESPN card at all. It's not looking great.
So it's probably not going to be Leon Edwards. Let's be honest. Like, if they need to sell, like, they obviously don't see like Leon's not moving on the needle the way Till is and these other guys are. So he's probably out of the question. But I really do think they need to get that sorted. You know, I think they need to start. You know, fair enough. Like, make all the things that people want to watch to get the casual audience involved. But please fortify the meritocracy part of this sport. Like, give it something, give it a bit of backbone. Like, this guy's done a lot. Like, why isn't he being matched? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. We actually do the segment of the show about Fight Your Corner. We talk about the MMA rankings, and I had to defend that. Yeah, they're perfect, they're great, they work wonderful, but they are absolute horse.
I've actually watched it before. Yeah, I was like, shit. Like, it would be so bad if you made me do like. I don't know how to like defend that. I'd be so crap at it. So fair play. Yeah, I've seen it before. It's brilliant.
Rashad Evans is going into the UFC Hall of Fame, but quickly, just for you, PC, what do you think Rashad will be remembered for? Will it be sending Chuck Liddell to the Shadow Realm?
Yes.
Yu-Gi-Oh.
That one, man, that was absolutely insane. And actually, when they were playing the VT the other day, when he was kind of being announced to the Hall of Fame, like, I got the same feeling that I got the night I saw that. Like, you know, it was still in my head then. Like, Chuck Liddell was still like. He was still Chuck Liddell, you know what I mean? And even though he'd lost a few times and stuff like that, I just didn't see that happening. No. And it was crazy, man. The knockout was so vicious. I think that's what he will remember for 100%. And that build up to the Rampage fight.
Yeah. For me, that Chuck Liddell knockout, it was one of them knockouts. You know, when you knock it and you see the fight and you go, whoa, and you see the knockout, and then all of a sudden you start going, is Liddell all right? Yeah. Because he hasn't moved, and it's real one that you're automatically concerned then. Like when Masvidal knocked Darren Till out, you were going, holy shit, what a knockout, and they're showing the replays, and then you're still seeing the white soles of Till's feet, and you're going, Jesus, is he all right? And that's what it was like with Chuck. Oh, Jesus, that was a horrendous one. Thiago Santos, who fights John Jones, UFC lightweight title next, says despite Jones's talent, he'll always be remembered as a doper. So I suppose this goes with a lot of fighters. Will that, once you popped, does it ruin the legacy, I suppose, for the rest of the career before you sign off?
I don't think it does. Really, like, look at Brian Ortega. Everyone just never talks about that. He actually. I mean, like, it's. But for Jones, like, come on, like, It's happened a lot with Jones. You know what I mean? There's like, it's not one question mark. It's like the Riddler's suit.
And it's still in the system. They basically let him piss hot now.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. There's been no transparency there. Yeah, of course. Like, he's right. Like, I mean, John Jones can't even get upset about that. He's like, yeah, of course. Like, if anyone ever interviews John Jones, like, they're not gonna ask him about it.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's the question. It's the question to ask John Jones. Like, are you still have those picograms of the illegal substance in you?
Yeah.
Like, you know, he's based, like, I think it's ridiculous. Yeah. Of course. I completely agree with Thiago.
You never know. It could be like an L kidney stone. You could be just going for a pee 1 minute and a petagram will pop out. You know what I mean? You go, oh, what the fuck was that? You know? You never know. It's almost like when John Jones is interviewed about being asked the questions. It's like Ronda Rousey. Whenever you see Ronda Rousey get interviewed by an MMA journalist, they never speak about the losses ever. Because she'll literally go, this interview's over, and go. Like, it's just, it's insane.
That happened to a guy, yeah, I know. He went over to Canada to interview her. I don't want to name his name in case he doesn't want to talk about it. But he went over to Canada to interview her, and that was his first question. Basically, off you go.
Oh shit.
Yeah. But it's insane. Like, you have to talk about it. Like, yeah.
It happened.
It's the ultimate. It's my ball. It's my rules. I'm going home. Petesy, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know you have to run to get off to record as well. But an absolute pleasure to finally get you on the show.
Sorry it's taking so long, lads. Monday's just my hell day, you know, and we all do it on the same day.
Yeah.
But fair play to you, keep her lit. And I love that studio, I always tell you, but fair play, you're doing great things.
Cheers, Petesy. Appreciate it. And right back at you. You catch Peachy. If you're not Petesy, if you're not already, get onto Eurobash, and you'll even hear Niall McGrath on there as well with him. Neil Seary makes the odd appearance. Keep it up, loving it. And thanks again, Petesy, for the time.
Thanks very much, lads. Have a good one.
Cheers, man. Have a good one.
So now it's that time of the week where we fight our corner. This is the segment where Sean gives us a topic. We are blind to this. We don't know what it is. And we decide who is pro and who is against the topic by the classic rock, paper, scissors. So let's get your fists up and let's get underway. So on 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh. Paper, beats rock. So Sean, what Rob is for this comment. So what have you got for this week?
So we actually just spoke about it with Petesy. It kind of came up. It was almost prophetic. More weight classes. Should there be more weight classes? Yes or no?
Cool. I win, so you can go first now.
So I'm saying there's no need for weight classes, or
correct? Yeah.
No need for more weight classes.
You got another shit under.
I'm not gonna lie. After we spoke about it with Petesy, we sort of fucking aired our graces on this one.
Just don't watch that bit.
Yeah.
Turn that off.
People do well. Just to make it clear again, you don't necessarily agree with what you're debating. It is kind of the premise of the show. Yeah,
it's kind of what we do here.
Yeah. So okay. So sorry, I'm going first. So there's no need for more weight classes. Just you mean UFC, obviously, is it?
It's the biggest. The biggest promotion because they're Dane is so vehemently against it. So we'll go with that one.
Okay, so a lot of people are fans of boxing. Obviously, over the years, boxing has developed more belts, more weight classes, and now has really muddied the waters. So for me, looking at MMA, I think they have, as I say, the Goldilocks effect. I think they have it just right. With the divisions that they have there, you've 25, 35, 45, 55, 70, 85, 205 and heavyweight. And I think that's right. I think if you start in adding in like a 165 or a 195 division, I think, some of the premises of the idea is for safety fighters cutting. But for me, it's just going to induce fighters who are just outside of, like, let's say, for example, they can't quite make... They'd make 70 comfortable, so they'll stretch themselves to make that extra 5. And that for there lies the problem for me. It's going to be fine for a lot of fighters that are fighting at 55 and can't make the 70, that they might have to just cut to the 65. But it's the guys who can make 70. That's where the problem for me is going to be, because they're going to try and cut that extra 5 pounds. And some fighters will make it, some fighters will go through hell to get there, and that's not what we want. The idea of this is to bring in safety in some way, but it's also to introduce better fights. So if you have fighters cutting more weight than the desired 170 that they can compete at safely, comfortably, and more exciting fights, if they're cutting that extra 5 pounds, it could destroy the fight. The idea of it is for both safety and more well-rounded fights. but you're going to muddy the water. You're going to add more titles, and I can guarantee you, if a 65 comes in the UFC, they'll start calling for a 195 too. There's going to be too many divisions, and there's going to be too many fighters pushing themselves further to the limit, although the idea is to stop that push.
With boxing, there is plenty of weight classes. There's tons of weight classes, but I don't think you have to bring in 50 weight classes or like 3 pounds within each. We're just talking about some more weight classes in the UFC, and I think it's definitely needed, because if you look at the way the UFC is structured, and even some of the better weight classes in the UFC right now, you have like bantamweight, you have like featherweight and lightweight. There's only like a 10 pound in the difference, and then when you go up, it kind of gets a little bit bigger as well. And I think it makes sense to bring in those weight classes. And if you're talking about, if you want to just give it one example of one weight class you could bring in, 165 is obviously the perfect one. And I don't think you can make the argument that you're depleting any division, because I think there's so many fighters at lightweight who don't even get a look in at the moment because it's so jam-packed, that they're throwing interim titles at people because they need to make these title fights, where you could actually have a legitimate division with so many great fighters coming from lightweight, maybe some coming down from welterweight, and making this really, really interesting division. So I don't think the point is that you're bringing in too many divisions. You're bringing in more divisions, and more divisions would be way better. And I don't think there's any problem with like a 195. You can even restructure them if you want. You can remove welterweight if you want. But I think the point is, if you give in more weight classes, more options for fighters, I think the weight cutting will reduce. It won't go away. It'll reduce though, and that's always a good thing. I think there'll be more competitive fights at more healthier weight classes, and I think there'll be more compelling title fights as well. And probably it might even reduce the need for interim title fights, because you have a few more weight classes where you can have pay-per-view headliners.
Just to give a couple examples, so I'm saying, fighters who stretch themselves and go up and do certain things. So examples that I'll give, just off the top of my head, I was just typing it there as I was doing it. If you look at, we spoke about it earlier as well, you look at Max Holloway, he went up to 55, and he just couldn't stand there. He just couldn't deal with that power. He couldn't take the shots being landed. That's 10 pounds. So if you look at a lightweight who decides, I'll go up to 65, and he fights a guy that was fighting at welter who can make the 55, make it down to 65, and you use that Max Holloway, that was only 10 pounds in the difference, and he was getting lit up by every shot Dustin Poirier was landing. Literally every shot wobbled him. And when you look at that, that was a poor performance going up in weight, where that's meant to be the good idea. You're going to have more energy, more output, more gas tank. That didn't happen. Couldn't stand with that power. So I think you're putting fighters in more danger. The smaller guys fighting the guys who can cut down and make that weight. On the opposite end of the spectrum, cutting too much weight. The recent example I have is TJ Dillashaw dropped down to fight Cejudo. Couldn't take a shot. Is that the depletion, though? Too much of a water cut? It's proven that you cut too much water, you're more susceptible. Your brain rattles around your head when you get shot. And he got finished in the first round by Henry Cejudo, who's not known as a striker or knockout artist by any means. So you have two examples of a fighter who went up and couldn't take the shots of the heavier man who cut weight to make that weight. And then you have the fighter who went down, who was the much bigger man than Henry Cejudo, but got knocked out by the smaller guy because he depleted himself too much. So that's what I mean by the Goldilocks. Some of them are fighting at the right. If you deplete your body too much, you're going to get hurt. If you go up, you're going to fight a guy who makes that weight comfortable, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, I think that kind of almost plays into the argument that you need some more, because there is so many fighters going up and down weight classes because they can't really find their perfect weight class. If you bring in more and you bring in less of a jump between certain weight classes, you're introducing the chance for some guy like maybe Kevin Lee, who maybe can compete quite at 170 but can't really compete at 155. Maybe that's his Goldilocks. It's the 165 division. I think you're giving more fighters more options to find that, and you'll probably be reducing some guys' need to cut too much weight.
I disagree with your point, because you're saying fighters who can't quite find their way. Max Holloway is the champion of the featherweight division. TJ Dillashaw was the champion weight.
Max Holloway always talks about how tough that is to
they're both champions of their division, so they both went up and one went down. They both lost, so they have their weight class and they got beaten in it.
Yeah, but I think your point is that like it's gonna make people cut more weight or cut less weight, but I don't think you're giving people more options to not cut weight.
What about the fighters that are making 170? That you know yourself 100%. You will always say fighters will always try to get that extra edge to be the more superior fighter in that fight. But I think so if you're telling me you're not going to get fighters who can make 170 attempt to make 65,
I don't think you can make that argument though, because that happens already.
Look at Pettis. Pettis tried to cut and go down. Frankie Edgar tried to go down too.
But that's in the current situation.
Yeah, but you telling me that wouldn't happen if in 65 division came tomorrow? Are you telling me a lot of welterweights wouldn't cut to 65?
I'm not saying that the argument is that you're.
Do you think? To answer that question. Do you think if 65 came out, welterweights wouldn't cut?
That's not the question. I'm saying.
No, but I'm asking you that question.
But I don't need to answer that question. That's not the debate.
No, it is. It's part of the debate. So
Okay,
I'm saying you will get welterweights. The reason why 65 shouldn't come is because you will get welterweights who will try to make that cut. So are you denying that you don't think any welterweights will try to make 65?
Oh yeah, they will, and that's a good thing, because there's plenty of welterweights that need to make that cut because they can't compete at welterweight. You're saying that it's going to introduce this weird.
Who can compete in the welter? If you're in the UFC welterweight division,
I think
you can compete in the welterweight
division. I
division.
think RDA is a perfect 165, or he could go to 165 and
RDA
barely cut much weight.
RDA, who's probably in the top 5 in the welterweight division.
I don't think that matters. But he didn't beat the champion, didn't beat Colby Covington. I think he has more of a chance there. You're arguing that it's going to introduce more weight cutting. The weight cutting is there, so that's not really an argument. You're opening up weight.
It's not just weight cutting; it's people going up that weight class as well. As if you look at Max Holloway, as the example I gave, if you were listening to my argument, he went up to 10 pounds. So you'll get fighters at 55 who will go up to 10 pounds, and they will fight guys who are fighting at 70 who are naturally bigger, and they're going to be getting bigger shots from bigger fellas.
That already happens. So I don't think you can make that argument.
It doesn't happen all that often.
People going up in weight class.
Not.
It does.
Name me 10 fighters who've gone up in weight class recently.
That's a silly question. That's a silly question.
Name me 10. You said it happens all the time.
Yeah, but I can't. You're putting me on the spot. Name 10 examples of it. That happens all the time.
Name me 5.
No, I'm not going to name fighters.
Can't even name 5. Right, Grant?
Yeah. Weight cutting happens. People go up in weight. So you're basically talking about the current situation and how it's harmful. Introducing more weight classes isn't going to.
You're saying. Okay,
what's your point?
My point is, if you put another division in between two divisions right now, you're going to get fighters from both them two divisions trying to make that.
Yes, and that's a good thing.
It's not because you're going to have guys who are getting hit by bigger opponents. You're going to have guys...
That happens already.
If you look
much
at
bigger opponents.
You and Sean are two weight classes in between. We put a weight class in the middle of you. You're going to knock the fucking head off poor Sean if you was meeting that middleweight. If you meet there.
Apart, to be fair.
Yeah, Rob would probably knock me out anyway.
I'd say we're a good few weight classes apart, to be fair.
I've seen these.
I don't understand your argument, because you're talking about how people are going to try to reach these weird weight classes when that happens already. So that's a symptom of the current situation.
It's not a symptom of the current
situation. It is. That happens already. There's guys who fight in weight classes they shouldn't be fighting in. There's guys cutting too much weight already. And a lot of it is probably, I'm not saying all of it, but a lot of it is probably because there's not a weight class they can go in the middle. They're cutting way too much weight to make lightweight when they could be making 165.
I disagree, and let's see who Sean agrees with.
Yeah, I think you made the best of a bad argument there, Noel. I think you did all right.
I did too. I thought I'd done very well.
Yeah,
actually,
I thought you'd done very well for a bad argument, but I mean, yeah, I think Rob made the compelling points. Like, it's an easy enough one.
Rob's a clear winner. Like.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm giving you credit for making the best of a bad argument though.
The fact that we spoke about it, they need new divisions. Of course they need new divisions.
It's ridiculous.
We came to that with pizza and I was thinking, oh fuck.
Yeah. Can't change it now. We made the graphic.
And I wouldn't mind. It was me who asked the 165 question to Petesy. I'm like, do you think that this fight on Saturday night really showcases the need for 165?
Yeah, that was the one time when rock, paper, scissors could go really either way.
No one normally tells you which way he's going to go as well. He didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
I did give you were you looking? I gave you the paper.
No.
I gave him the paper and subconscious.
I didn't want to. I want to mix it up all the time, Sean. Like the way I come over to you during the week and go, Sean, go down to shop. Do you want a bottle of Lucasade? By the way, I thought I put across a really good argument last week and you didn't go with it. So well done, Rob.
Wonderful, thanks.
About time you want to fight.
Send us in a few topics, lads.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah,
what's your email
address? Sean
at a fewgoodfights.com.
So if you want to hear us arguing bigger, send Sean a topic, and even in your topic, it'd be quite funny if you add saying, I want Noel to argue this or Rob to argue this, just to see what your perspective would be. But that mightn't, obviously it mightn't happen. It could be just fluke that happens, but it'd be interesting to see. But fight you.
Throwing shade back there.
Fucking Carol Vorderman over there with the mats. But that was Fight Your Corner. Rob finally won a fight. He doesn't even win a fight at home with his missus. But let's keep it moving and let's get educating young Sean, and let's get some oldies but goldies. So we now move on to where Sean gets his homework out and he grades a couple of fights we gave him. So this is educating young Sean. So Sean, again, we'll ask you 5 championship rounds on your review. Let's start with Paul Daly, Nick Diaz, Bellator. The number has escaped me, Rob.
Strikeforce.
The number, Bellator on my mind. Strikeforce, what? Doesn't matter.
Diaz versus.
That's how they actually call it, wasn't
Diaz
it?
versus Daly.
Daly.
Yeah.
What did you think? And you were surprised last week when Rob gave you this. Went, Jesus, Daly's around ages.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know him from Bellator, obviously. Yeah, it was good to watch Nick Diaz fight. The 2 times I've seen him has been from this, but yeah, really good. The 2 fights were actually quite similar this weekend in that they were very back and forth. Both people got rocked. Yeah. I loved at the start of this fight when they squared up, they actually put their heads together in between Big John McCarthy, and Diaz just looked at me and goes, little bitch. It's classic Diaz. As they broke off, he's like, little bitch. Classic Diaz. He obviously didn't say it now like I said it. He obviously saying like he was from Stockton.
Yeah.
But yeah, really good fight. Really enjoyed it. Nick Diaz was just a bit of a gangster.
He was fun, wasn't he?
And walking around, hands low. Yeah.
It was fun.
Enjoyed that one.
Did you get I remember watching that fight and I got the impression, obviously it was before he came back to the UFC, but I got the impression that Strikeforce really built him out to be a huge star.
Yeah.
And you could feel it, I thought.
I did sort of get that vibe off the commentators. Mauro Ranelli was commentating again.
Mamma mia!
Jesus! Sorry about that.
I really like him on the commentary as well. Poor ears. Yeah, I really like him on the commentary as well. They did a good job of getting across how big a star Nick was for them.
It's quality.
Daly looked good as well, though.
Yeah, it was a really fun fight.
Good fight.
Really fun fight.
Giving it the 4 championship round.
Nice.
Didn't go on long enough to get the 5.
Not enough blood.
Yeah.
I went with an old favourite of mine. I went with Frank Mir taking on Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. What do you think of this one?
This was crazy, this fight. Obviously, I've seen Big Nog with Pride. You gave me him before.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember what fight.
Bob's up.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, really good fight. Both were rocked. Could have been stopped before, arguably could have been stopped before it was actually stopped. Frank Mir, found the finish out of nowhere. It was a crazy submission.
Love that submission.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Frank Mir looked really good, really impressive.
I love that as where it's like, it's gonna break. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Oh, relieve the pressure.
It looked nasty. His arm definitely popped.
Because the whole thing was Nogueira's never tapped to a
submission.
Yeah.
Should have tapped.
And he just tapped just as the arm went.
Yeah.
Cook!
Yeah, you can see it and you're like, oh.
It was savagery.
Yeah,
and
really
I
good
rewinded
fight.
it about 6 times and rewatched it.
Yeah.
And
Mir has said it many times. He'll do it till he breaks someone's arm. Like he done it with Big Tim Sylvia as well.
I must break you. Yeah.
They talk as well about the injury that Mir was coming back from as well.
Oh, the car crash.
Motorbike crash.
Was a motorbike. Yeah. So that was
Vehicular
badass to
crash.
come back after that and do what he was doing.
Mir was like, they seen him as like the future of the heavyweight division, and then he had that crash. But
Yeah. It's like the Efren Escudero.
Yeah.
Do you remember he was coming up?
Giving that one
didn't
a
happen.
4 as well.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
2
2
fours.
4s this week.
Jesus,
2 fours.
A man gets his fucking arm broken and his shoulder popped and fucking Sean's not fucking giving hand. Jesus, you're a fucking mean bastard. This week I am pulling out one that I think you'd be surprised. Shab had a thing stand up called. You think you'd be surprised? It'd be very good.
Oh.
If you know me and you know who my favourites are, so I just gave Frank Mir who would be my favourite, but my all-time favourite fighter of all time, first time I'm giving him UFC 120. It was in fucking London.
All right. I think I know it.
Go on.
Oh.
Is it Dan Hardy? Carlos Condit?
It's Dan Hardy. Carlos Condit is my pick for you, Sean. Love Carlos Condit, and you know Dan Hardy. You know Dan Hardy from probably just commentary, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That was a very fun fight.
Yeah. Very fun fight.
Very fun fight. Mine's the main event from UFC.
Imagine you. Mine's the main event of 120.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
big. It's
Yeah.
Rob,
Yeah.
you have to stop doing this.
Low hanging fruit. The main event of UFC on Fuel TV 3.
Fuel. The main event.
Yeah.
Fuel. Jesus,
Fuel TV.
Fuel. Give us the weight class at least.
Feder.
Fuel a Feder. Fuck me.
It's not an easy one to be fair.
Right, go on.
It's the Korean Zombie versus Dustin Poirier.
Ooh.
Let's go fight. It was a
Interesting.
little under the radar one.
I can see that one being a barn burner.
Yeah, it's fun. It's very fun.
A barn burner. Speaking about educating young Sean, educate us? What did you think of Deontay Wilder at the weekend?
Deontay's such a funny one because if you watch him, he looks shit.
Yeah.
He's not technically very good, but he stood on Dominic Breazeale like he was a trash can and he just crumpled him.
But come here. Now, don't get me wrong, big shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I was looking at it going, right, you're fresh. It's like 2 minutes into the first round. He's thrown an old classic 1-2 combination.
Yeah.
Should you not be out of the way? Yes. Should you not be maybe standing in front of the Wilder? Yes. Maybe keep your hands up? Yes. Did you do any of this? No.
Yeah. I want to get your reaction to this. I was reading it today. Brazzelli protests Deontay Wilder KO. Stoppage was a little early. No joke. He said that.
Fuck right off. Well, he's an awful habit, doesn't he, when he knocks someone down, just jumping on the rope straight away. He done it against Tyson Fury, and then it's like, oh, you mean I got to get back down and continue fighting?
Pal Harris done that before.
Freakish power, hasn't he?
Anderson did it. Anderson did it against Bisping. He thought it was over.
But in fairness, the fight was fucking over. Bisping was knocked out, and then he regained his senses and continued.
Didn't won the fight.
Yeah, but Wilder, the biggest hitter since Mike Tyson, the word is saying. What do you think of Fury's reaction? See Fury's reaction.
Yeah, Fury talks a lot of shit, but he wouldn't knock a wank out like so.
We'll leave it there. So, Oakley dokley, we leave it there. So, great work, young Sean. And let's get on to Sean's weird and wonderful news. I think that's probably going to be weirder and wonderful, that one. But yeah, Sean's weird and wonderful news.
Small enough one this week. First up, I want to address Will Fleury. He was at it again with the spuds.
Asparagus.
Yeah.
So he used the toilet after.
I replied to Will when he put this up on Instagram, and I just replied with the hashtag Will Fleury fucking loves spuds.
He does.
And he did confirm to me that he does in fact love spuds. So just in case anyone was wondering
just
about
in case, in case you didn't get from his dinners, he does love spuds.
Yeah, that dinner looks very nice now to me.
Does look good.
Needs an onion.
Yeah,
it needs. This isn't weird and wonderful news anymore. This is reviewing what Will Fleury's diet
or Max Holloway's fashion. One or the other.
It needs an onion or a mushroom there,
or both. I'd go with both.
Bit of pepper sauce.
Yeah.
But, you know,
pepper sauce. He might be trying to stay away from the pepper sauce. Maybe
water.
Yeah, it's still the powder. I'm a big fan of this dinner.
Big fan of the tablecloth.
Yeah, it's something else.
That was definitely a moving in present from the family, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Will Fleury did not go up to like Woody's or Home something and buy that like going, yeah, that's the one I want.
Yeah.
So we'll have more next week on Will Fleury's diet as well.
Wonderful.
And as well, Dan, don't play it.
Play
it. Fuck you, Twitter. So Dan Mulvahedi was reffing at this show.
Who's Dan Mulvahedi?
Friend of the show.
That idiot right there, look at him.
Yeah, look at him. He was reffing at this show. He tweeted this one. So it's already been spoiled. But
that's savage.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Good stoppage, Dan. Well done, he knew.
Boom.
That's very nice.
As Robin Black would say, bink. Look at the calmness of your man walking off after.
Yeah.
Go back to the start, give us a look at that one more time.
For those listening,
it's like, no problem.
Spinning wheel.
It's a
spinning hook kick.
It's a spinning hook kick. You sort of. I'm going.
Beautiful.
Oh, he does sort of hook at the end, yeah.
I'd go hook kick.
Beautiful. Little walk off. Dan stands over man going, yeah, mate. 1. 2.
I love the emoji too.
Presume he didn't get knocked out. Or, sorry, get back up.
Presume he did.
Well, he's not knocked out.
I presume he just got up, yeah.
Well, he's not knocked out, so it's not a knockout.
It's technically a knockout.
Technical knockout. That's a little cracker there, alright.
One more thing as well. I was listening to a podcast during the week. Those of you who listen, you know I like a flutter. There's a podcast I listened to. It's called the Inside Betting Podcast, and they had a professional MMA bettor on this week as well. That's a really interesting listen.
Yeah, go check that out. Actually, listen to that.
Rob,
very good.
What's it called?
The Inside Betting MMA Podcast, and they had a professional MMA bettor on. He was just talking about his strategies and stuff, how he makes most of his money off the fight night cards rather than the pay-per-views and stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff around that.
It's like that, really. Like, if you go to the dogs on a Saturday night, you're going to not win a fucking penny because they're all champions.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's the lower level stuff, he said, basically, where you make your money and get an edge. But yeah, it's an interesting listen. So
he said he never bets on favourites as well.
Yeah, he said he actually has some really interesting correlations. He said, I think if you bet only on people who were anywhere between the odds of 5 to 4, and it was plus 110 and plus 150, so slight underdogs, you make a 9% or return on investment over 5 years, which is quite big.
Do you know what's going to be interesting about Rob piped up there? Yeah, never bets on favourites. I can't wait for next week to we're making fighter picks. Rob will be just pure underdogs the whole card.
Although recently I've been changing my tune.
Could we get the odds on that one first?
I just want to make sure.
He's the favourite, is he? Yeah,
are they between these odds? Another one he said was he makes a lot of money on fighters who are shorter than their opponent but have a longer reach or something like that, wasn't it? That was another one.
He has a load of interesting correlations and stuff like that people wouldn't generally look at. Yeah, it's worth listening. I would recommend.
Is this fella like a millionaire now through gambling?
I don't know. He probably loses all his
bets. That's the problem, is that people hear this and they go down that route. Like he could be betting like 10 bets and 9 of them are losses, but he's betting at such a value and such a stake that the 10th bet gets him back. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
probably.
Gamble responsibly, people. Gamble responsibly. This has been a few good fights. We're wrapping up with. It's weird that we're wrapping up with gambling talk, but don't gamble. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss.
Gamble.
Don't gamble. I'm saying make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any
straight
future
over my
videos.
Head. That went straight
Honest
over
God,
my head.
to get me Phil Campbell on this show. Replace that Robert Palin fella. Phil knows where I'm going. This has been A Few Good Fights, episode 12. Thank you very much to Petesy Carroll. Thank you to Sean. Thanks for Will Flurry with his dinners.
Keep it up, Will.
Keep it up, Will. You're keeping Sean hungry and satisfied.
Dan Overhead made a comeback.
Yeah, Dan was on the show. Yeah. Fucking hell. And Rob, fair play to you. You're doing a great job as always. And bringing up the looks of the show as well. But until next week, you stay classy. And we're going out of here because we record on Monday. So it's Game of Thrones finale time.
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. And no doubt tomorrow will be full of people going, they've ruined the books.
Yeah.
Get over it, you fucking nerds. So apparently if you press this button somewhere here, it subscribes and you get all the notifications for the show. So hit that button there.
You have to click the bell though to get the notifications
here.
down the bottom.
Make sure you hit it and they get the ringer things because Rob didn't know. So it's the button there. Or there.
It's somewhere roughly around that area. Yeah.